You just want to just keep it moving. There's like a bunch of names that pop up that says admit. Hi.
Sit
You're
anywhere?
here for the mitigating microaggressions, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Yep. You can sit on this side or on this side. It's up to you. Van will be right here.
Oh, okay. Huh. Well,
I know this is a little different setup than last time.
so we're going online.
Yep. We will be getting started in just a few minutes.
Yeah. Big guy. What about the other guy? Is he Dean too or 6?
Because he's Deontay.
That's his name.
Yes, D3.
Okay, so
So D and Tay. Yes.
God, okay. I was wondering.
Oh, you don't have to do anything because you're here.
Oh,
So you don't have to join online.
these are we have online participants as well as in.
She's training, so that's why she's on her computer, and then she's just gonna help monitor the chat.
Okay.
So yeah, you are all good.
Is that your phone?
Oh, man.
And this one?
Hello, Lexi.
Hi.
Hi, this is Dr. J.
Hey.
Hi, I'm not going to be able to come in person, but I'm not sure how to get my video to work so that you all can see that I'm here.
Okay,
I've
well
not
that's
I've not used Teams before.
okay. You see next to the leave button, you have a share button, a mic button, and a camera button.
Yeah, and next to the camera button, I'm getting like a red circle with a line through it, like you can't turn it on or something. Let's see here.
If you don't usually use Teams, you might have to give it permission. And I don't know if I can walk you through that right off the top of my head.
Okay. I just want
I think you muted yourself. Yeah, Dr. J from last time.
you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, I'll just leave things alone then.
Okay.
And if I can figure out how to get my camera going, I'll do that.
Good, because we'd love to see you.
Well, thank you. Hello, Doc. Hey, I'm gonna make sure I'm there the next time to terrorize you. Yeah, I want you to be here.
Thank you, John. Of course. You guys have a good day.
Thank you. Danny, come up to the table.
Oh, I am. I was getting my stuff.
Oh,
I asked her why she was over here.
can you just forward the link to the lead? All right, well, we can go ahead and get started. We can go ahead and get started. It's 5 minutes past.
All right, well, welcome everyone. Vanthony McMullan, a microaggressions session. About 50-something people on the call, and then about 5 people in the room. So my partner in crime, Alexa, here is going to help me navigate with teams and put you in breakouts and make sure that if you have any questions on the chat, we're going to go ahead and fill those. I'm not sure, a lot of you might have been here the last session or not, so you might hear some of the same jokes because I'm pretty routine. Get some water here and then we'll get going.
Can I hear anything in this meeting here, dude?
Okay. All right, so the first thing to know, a lot of you are interested in getting credit for this CME CEUs, and we're gonna share these slides as well, but if you wanna take a screenshot of this right now, we also wanna share the slides with you. You wanna say anything about that, Alexa?
No.
So we'll send these to you as well, so you'll have, but it's still a sensitivity to within 12 hours, right, having to access it. So you need to make sure you activate the code within.
You might have to talk a little bit louder because the microphone's
Okay.
right there.
Yeah, can you ask them if they hear me okay? On the call, can you let us know if you hear me okay?
Yep,
Yes.
you're saying yes.
Yes.
I can hear you okay. Ooh. All right, well, thank you.
Stay up closer to the
Can you
table,
move that to
please.
recording session?
Yeah.
Transmission over that says recording. Oh. If that's got a few technical issues, so we'll get going. Thank you. So what you can expect, in general, here's the things we're gonna be talking about. Again, you get these slides, so you don't have to worry about taking notes on because of retaining any of this information, but in general, you'll see the things we're gonna be talking about. Defining microaggressions, talk about some of the harmful impacts, do some reflection time, spend some time monitoring your own behavior, and some examples. So one of the things I share with you right now with this particular presentation, there's a lot of content. And I did that on purpose. We may not cover all the content, but it's gonna be enough content for you to take with you as a reminder as you go through this again. So as we deal with time, there might be some things I don't cover or kind of say, hey, look at that when you slide. So that's kind of how it's gonna work. Anybody in the room or in the chat have any questions before we get started? Hey, Brandon.
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, good. All right. So I did this at the last session. This might be redundant for some of you who were at the last session, but I'm gonna put these up here real quick. Just kind of set the groundwork and the context for what we're talking about regarding DEI. And again, you'll get these slides. I'm just gonna give you a quick overview of what these mean because it gets confusing a lot of times about what these concepts mean. So diversity is the first one. And diversity just simply means all the ways that we are different. You have to let somebody in there. Oh, I know who's doing okay.
She's in.
Okay. So that's what diversity means, all the ways we are different. I mean, it's pretty simple, but a lot of people get that mixed up. Inclusion really is about, is your input heard, are you being heard? And the way I describe inclusion is, it's one thing to have a seat at the table, and it's another thing to have a voice. And reason why this profession that I've been in has evolved, because over the years, most organizations just talked about diversity, which means that all the ways were different. They thought they were doing it right. But if you have people of color and women in your group, but they aren't being heard, then you aren't practicing inclusion. So we have to do one step further. And equity, obviously, is a big part of what we do at Bronson, but that's really the sense of fairness, not treating people equally, but treating fairly. In other words, meeting people where they are. And belonging just kind of brings all those together. Belonging is just the hardest one to do because that's bringing all your diversity efforts, your equity efforts, and your inclusion efforts all together to be belonging. And a lot of organizations, a lot of people in my work, they don't use that term belonging because it's hard to achieve. And right now, we're seeing a lot of people, organizations just talk about equity because in this divisive age we're in now, people don't want to talk about diversity or inclusion. So kind of water it down a little bit to make it, I guess, make people appease people, but still the work's got to be done. We aren't doing that here because the voice is pretty strong in terms of what we want to do. And so we're just sticking with diversity, equity, and inclusion at this point. So here's my background, born and raised in Flint, Michigan. I think I mentioned my name earlier, but and again, some of you have heard this before, we'll hear the same thing again. My name is Vanthony. It's my dad's idea to take Anthony and put a V in front. That was his idea. And but I go by Van a lot because it's hard to pronounce my name. Well, people look at it and say something totally different. And I'm okay with being called Van. From a diversity and inclusion perspective, some people get their names shortened or people call them something else. It's offensive. So I wouldn't say you can call me Van if I didn't want you to call me that. But so I go by that, but it's an important thing as far as diversity and inclusion is concerned, people being called by their names. And also it's a big thing nowadays also to have people spell their names spelled right. I know there's a lot of sensitivity to emails going out with people's names spelled wrong. I think I saw some recently where it was one of the surveys that was there before I got here. And I think somebody actually commented from Bronson that their supervisor misspelled their name wrong every time they send an email out, every time. And sometimes people don't say anything. Microaggressions, a lot of times people don't say anything, but it is offensive. So you would think you could get it right. I mean, because if you send an email, the name is right there. Spell it right, right? I was saying that and criticizing other people, but I did it last week. I did it last week. All right. Background, leadership development. I've done a lot of leadership development, coaching, leadership development with a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. Spent a lot of my career at Meyer. That's retail. I spent doing work at Meyer for 10 or 20 years. Then next I went to consumer goods as Kellogg. Another 10 to 12 years working at Kellogg, doing training and development work like this, and DEI work. And the last job before I came here was at Muskegon Community College, where I was director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I got about 1.5 years experience working in higher education. Have a doctorate of education from Cornerstone University. Got that in 2021. And currently I teach a couple classes here. I teach business and communication. And my current title at Bronson is diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. I say current because it might be changing. Because when people think about consultants, they usually think about someone from outside, like a contractor. So I don't know what's going to change. Now, what I hear around here is it takes a lot to change the title. I don't know if it's going to change for a while, but Lord said it's going to be a while. So anyway, we'll see. All right, so we're going to do kind of a quiz, and Lex is going to help. Are you doing it, or Alyssa, as far as?
I think I was gonna do it.
Okay. Take a little quiz. This is kind of opening icebreaker. Let me get my paper. God. Can't remember like I used to.
Classic Van.
Yeah, I forgot. So this is one of the things I do with icebreakers and work I do because this content is pretty. I need to step up here. She keeps telling me what to do.
I want to make sure they can see you.
Okay, one of the things that I do for icebreakers, because this content gets kind of pretty challenging. So what I like to do is do an icebreaker to open things up, and then we'll get into the meat of the program. So I'm going to ask a question, and if it's true for you, just raise your hand. This is one of the ways we're going to look at diversity and inclusion to see the makeup online, also the group. Okay, so I'm going to read these questions, and if it's true to you, if it's true for you, I want you to raise your hand. And I want you guys in the room to look around and see who you have similarities with, who you don't, and same thing. Then you can let me know what the on the call, right? All right. So the first question is true or false for you? Pineapple goes on pizza.
Oh,
Pineapple goes on pizza.
Sure, what's up?
Yeah, if it's true for you, put your hands. So we got a couple of people in the room.
got about
Lots of hands online.
20 online.
A lot of online folks say it does.
I'm saying,
Oh, hey, no. People say hell no. Here's another one. I drink at least 1 cup of coffee every day. I drink at least 1 cup of coffee every day. Okay. Here's the next one. I make my bed every morning. Make my bed every morning. Some people, they can't leave and they have to do that before they leave the house.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, you want to, yeah.
My most hated task.
Yeah.
I have beef with that.
Here's the next one.
I
I have hidden a snack just so no one would find it. I've hidden a snack just so no one would find it.
my kids.
Are you looking here on the?
like about 15.
Okay. Next.
Dozen.
Okay. I have ordered takeout just to avoid having to wash dishes. I have ordered takeout just to avoid having to wash dishes.
Doing that tonight. She's getting ideas now.
Okay, here's another one. I have made a meme before. I have made a meme before.
Oh, mean.
Meme.
I don't know if I made one before.
I send them a lot.
Got one in the room. How's it looking on? Anybody?
I know.
You got about 10.
That's some young people. I don't know about that. Okay, next one is I have at least one sibling. Have at least one sibling. So everyone in the room has at least one sibling. Again, when you look at the makeup of the room, you'll see some of the differences and similarities. How about the call? How about the, you have a number of people?
25 and counting.
26.
The question is not if you get along with them. The question is if you have one. I just want to be sure we distinguish that. All right, the next one is, I believe in extraterrestrials or aliens. Man, this whole room in here believes it. That's a little scary. That's a little scary right there. Okay, the last one is, I have met a celebrity. I have met a celebrity. So on the call or in the room, anyone care to share the celebrity that they met?
Wow. Stevie Wonder was at my grandmother's funeral.
Really?
Yeah.
You from Detroit?
Yeah.
I said, really? That's a big deal.
I know.
It's not a casual thing
That's
to just
crazy.
say.
Anybody in the room want to share a celebrity? Raise your hand. Somebody that you met, or anybody?
Some girlfriends and I saw Mr. T in Chicago like 40 years ago.
So we have some folks on the call that want to respond. If they are maybe got
People
that.
are saying, Aaron Carter when I was a kid,
Aaron
Kim
Carter.
Whitley,
Somebody's uncle dated Tina Turner.
Justin Verlander. Before Ike in
Oh, yeah.
parentheses.
Did they say before I?
Yep.
Should've kept her.
Dancing with the Pros star, or
Aaron
Dancing with the
Carter?
Stars Pros. Matt Damon in South Beach. I like Matt.
So one, and we'll talk about generations in a second, but one of the things I realized as we get older, when people start naming celebrities, I don't know, the young people, I don't know any of them.
Waiting to be admitted.
I know who Stevie Wonder is. That's not here. Anybody else have anyone that they want to share, or anybody any on the call that
Oh, R. Kelly's your distant cousin.
Yikes.
I don't know if I would bring that up. I don't think I would.
Oh, they said distant.
Yes, okay. Got it. Okay, let's move on then. All right, so again, if you were here last time, I do this also to see the makeup of the group. So we're gonna ask about generations so we can see the makeup of the group in terms of how we look. That's also part of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So again, this is not about whether or not you agree with your generations, it's about when you were born, just to see the makeup of the group from a diversity inclusion perspective. So, okay, so on the call in here, most of these folks are retired, but I just want to see, is anybody here, if you were born from 1918, between 1918 and 1945, you just want to stand up and here, or you want to, on the call there, just put your hands up. Most of the times, again, a lot of folks are retired. And I don't know if I said this last time, when I first started doing this, when I said stand up if you can. Wasn't trying to be funny, but it just was wrong. I know it was wrong. Thank you, Lexi. I know it was wrong. Okay.
It sounds inclusive,
I did, yeah.
but
All right, so next one. If you were born between 1946 and 1964, here, please stand. And if you're on the call, just raise your hand. So let's get a look at the makeup of the group and see what we have as far as generations on the call. How's it looking?
baby boomer.
So we got a few baby boomers on the call from what it looks like,
Yeah,
right?
we got a handful.
Yeah. And I fall in that category as a baby boomer. And again, one of the main characteristics of a baby boomer is find a job. Not find a job that makes you happy. Find a job. You're gonna leave here, you're gonna go to school, you're gonna do something. That's just how baby boomers are growing up. All right, let's do the next generation. Again, I want to kind of get
We got a lot of X's.
Okay.
popping
So
up.
Generation X, if you're born between 1965 and 1980, please raise your hand on the call and stand up here. So we got one X person. And there's a lot of people in the call.
A lot of X's.
And I say this every time I do this. That's the hardest group to work with in the workplace. and the reason why it could be a challenge because they question authority. Everything is proven to them. Now, in a positive way, they do that because they want things, they really are focusing on continuous improvement. But sometimes it can rub people the wrong way, right? All right, so now the next generation Y, if you were born between 1981 and 1995, please stand in the room.
We got a lot
And on the call.
That's good. We got a lot online.
You got out online?
Mhm.
Okay. So would you say more than,
Yeah.
I think X's and Y's are pretty close right now.
funny.
And again, characteristics of the millennials, find a job to make you happy. Millennials are not going to stay in a job very long if they don't like. Because they'd rather not have a job other than being one that they don't like. They really do. And that's where this term adolescence came from, because these folks aren't in a hurry to grow up. Yeah, these folks aren't in a hurry to grow up. They got all my life to grow up, so I'm just going to take it easy. And the last one is Generation Z. So if you were born between 1996 and 2012, on the call, please raise your hand. Anyone here that's a Generation Z. And of course, they haven't been in the workforce very long, so it's not as many. But do we have any on the call?
Yeah, we got a few.
And as you can imagine with that group, everything is technology reliant. I mean, that's kind of, they're born and raised on technology. So that's another thing I like to do with all of my groups, because I want to see the makeup of the group. And I'm a baby boomer. And oftentimes I will tell jokes, or I will give examples, and people have no idea what I'm talking about. In fact, let me hold on for 1 second. I bring it sometimes. I show this. Some of you know what it is now. I show this. You see, most people, you don't know
I
what
think you showed me last time, but I
you
don't.
don't know what it is, do you?
No, I don't.
You must have put it away by the time I got here.
Yeah, you know what this is?
Play some.
Ask anybody on the call, they know what this is.
Go closer to the camera so they can see it.
You got on the call, can you see this?
Turn it,
Right now.
turn it all outside so they can.
No, you might have to get a little bit closer.
Can you see it?
8-track tape,
Who said that?
Denise Hunt.
Wow. Most people have any idea what this is. Did you know what it was, Lex?
No,
This was an 8-track tape, and it actually plays music.
my mom's only 50.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you know what it is. I mean, it's old school. You get in the car and you push it in. I think got about 12 songs in it, but sometimes when it drags, you have to put something under because the music starts to drag. But yeah, this is dating myself as an old school baby boomer. And you knew what it was, didn't you? Well, you grew up in Detroit, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have some.
You know?
Yeah.
Really?
Music head,
I have
yeah.
an
You a
8-track
music
player.
guy? You have an 8-track player?
Yeah.
I can come over your house.
Come on.
I
You
love
better
it.
bring all your little discs over.
That's right.
Have a party.
All right, let's move on. So let's start with this phrase. Again, in terms of diversity and inclusion, I want to know how many of you have heard this before. If you said it or if you heard it. I want to look at this for a second. And I want anybody on the call or here to comment on whether or not they've heard this phrase before.
Some people are raising their hand or putting in the chat.
What does it mean? When people say that, or you said it, or you heard it, what does that phrase mean? How do you interpret what people are saying when they say that? Anybody? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Some people are saying physical hurt, but emotional, you can get over it or bounce it off, shrug it off.
It's a defense against showing any effect from insults, verbal insults.
It says words will never hurt me.
Somebody said verbal abuse is okay, but physical abuse is not acceptable.
Verbal
But
abuse.
then they said not true.
Anybody think that's true though? That words don't hurt?
Hurt versus-
No.
And a lot of people may say that because a lot of people say that because it's like, if someone says something to you, you need to get over it. But people don't get over words that quick. And that's what microaggressions are really all about. So, okay. So here's our textbook definition of microaggression. I want you guys to take a minute to read that. So we're gonna have some definition, some conversation around the definition in a few minutes, but I want you to get your head around the definition so everybody's got the same context. So here I want you to take a look at the different kinds of microaggressions. And it's not important for you to memorize the different kinds of microaggressions, but it's important for you to know the type of microaggressions that exist. Okay. So the first one are micro assaults. So these can be intentional. These are intentional. They're made to degrade folks. That's the first one. The next one is micro insults. They can be intentional or unintentional. Again, I give you a couple examples here. Woman touching her purse and crossing the street when she sees an African-American male, someone saying, "Is that your real hair?" Again, that could be intentional or unintentional, but that's a micro insult. And the last one is micro invalidations. They could be intentional or not. People saying certain things, they could be intentional or not, but they're called micro invalidations. And a couple examples up here is making any person of color, mistaking a person of color as a service worker or assuming a female doctor is a nurse. And again, in that case, that is micro invalidations could be intentional or unintentional. All right, so here's the question.
Go back to the last.
Okay, we got a question in the room, a comment.
If someone were to say, "You're so well spoken," would that be a micro insult or a micro invalidation?
It depends on your interpretation. And actually, we're going someone. Let me say the question again. Say it again.
If someone says, "You're so well spoken,"
Someone says you're so well spoken.
is that a micro insult or a micro invalidation?
Which one is that he's saying? Is that a micro insult or micro validation? So let me ask this question, and that might answer this. Let me ask this question. In terms of microaggressions, does it matter whether or not it's intentional or not? If someone commits a micro, if you say something or someone says something to you, does it matter to you whether or not it's intentional?
We do have a
No.
question.
Oh, we have a question.
Somebody said, can microaggressions happen to all people and not only African Americans?
Yes, or we had a question on the chat. Microaggressions happens to everyone, but I will tell you it happens to women typically 2 to 3 times more than anyone else. But yeah, they happen to everyone. Yes, yes. Any other questions I missed on the? Okay. So the question I have for you, and you can come off mute if you want to, or you can say we can read it on the chat or in the room. This is kind of a personal thing. Does it matter to you if someone commits a microaggression to you? Does it matter to you whether or not they did it intentionally or not? Anybody?
May I make may I make a comment?
Yes.
So I had 2 situations that exactly that sentence was said to me. I do have an accent. So a person said to me, a friend, I know she is a friend. She said, "Oh, you're so well spoken." I mean, there's so many foreign I don't understand, but I can understand you. I know that what she said for me was not exactly the most beautiful thing, but she was trying to be nice to me. She was nice, right? She's my friend. I know that there was no intention, but I had at work people saying that, which was clearly, yeah, you have an accent, so it's a miracle I can understand you. So it also depends on the background, your relationship with the person that is saying something. It's my opinion, right? The other person I didn't even bother, but the person at work, I stop on my tracks, right? What exactly do you mean? So for me, it's who is saying, how the person is saying, and what is the relationship you have with that person.
So here's my perspective on this. It varies from person to person, but some people, if it happens over and over to you, at some point it doesn't matter to you if they meant it or not. You're just offended by it. But the other thing to think about is how do you know if they intended it, if it was with intention or not? How do you know?
I ask you.
Yeah. Some people say stuff and you think they have to know that's offensive. I've been around a long time. Some people have no idea what they said was offensive. So when I ask that question, it's really a personal thing there, but it depends on your experience. A lot of folks who this happens to over and over, they just get tired. And then they say it's not even worth even saying anything. Or like your question you had, do you really know? Do you know you think it was intentional or not, that example you used?
I don't have just one example. It's been said multiple times. So just that term itself or that phrase itself, I've heard on various occasions. So I don't have one specifically I can point to.
And my thing, we'll talk about this also. My thing is to give people grace. Because sometimes you have no idea. People have no idea. You would be surprised things people say and have no idea it's offensive. And we're gonna show some
Man, there's a
examples.
comment actually in here that talks about that. I
Let's see.
love, there's a comment here from Lisa Peterson. It says impact over intent, but also grace for those who don't intend to be insulting. Sometimes it's an educational opportunity.
That's perfect. Thanks for that, Dr. Jerry. And my thing is about this, you don't always know. That doesn't mean you have to accept someone offending you, but you don't always know. And I'm not suggesting that everyone just let everything go. If they have good intentions, let it go, because if it's offensive, it's offensive. And sometimes you need to address it. Okay. Anybody else? I missed that. Thank you, Doctor. Anybody else that I missed on the call? Any other comments that I missed?
There were a lot of comments around intent versus impact, and that the harm still hurts, and comments about having grace.
Let me ask you this, because I know you've done some work around this. What's your perspective on whether or not does it matter if it's intentional or not? I know because you've done some work in this area as well.
Yeah, so I think the intent is actually what helps differentiate between whether or not it's a micro invalidation, a micro insult, right? Because the level of awareness of whether or not it's hurtful can depend on what type of microaggression it is my perspective. And I totally agree with the comment about the relationship with folks, because, and I think that's part of what makes the micro part of the microaggression, is because sometimes it can feel like it's a compliment. And so you feel this like the catch-22 in it. Like I've it should feel good, but it still feels hurtful at the same time. So I do think the relationship matters. And I also agree that when it's appropriate, having grace and using it as an education opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else want to comment in the room or on the call? And again, for me, I go through the definitions so people know what they are. But I don't know that is that important to identify which one it is if it happens. But at least you need to know the different types. Get your head around the context, what they are. Because sometimes people don't know whether it's a microaggression or not. But this is a good thing to look at in terms of the different types that you could experience. And again, a lot of it is intentional, some of it is. And so your response could be based on whether or not you feel it's intentional or not.
There is one comment that says, my daughter is only 17. It happens so often that she's just tired. It's not her job to educate the whole community on race.
Yeah, so that was a comment about someone, her daughter's 17 and she's tired of it already. And you'll hear me talk about this, as we go through this. A lot of people are tired. If you're a person of color and you're a woman, you get tired. And so I often ask, why don't you say anything? Because I'm tired. Or the whole rationale about, well, Bill's gonna be Bill, John's gonna be John. So they say this all the time, which doesn't excuse it, but a lot of times it happens so much it gets exhausting. And the other part of that is you have to be careful of with this kind of things. You can get passive aggressive where you have too much and you explode, and it's not good for anybody. Okay? All right, so we're gonna break you into groups. You guys can talk here at the table. Lex is gonna break you guys into group, and we kind of went through the textbook definition, and then I showed you the different types. I showed you the different types here. So we want you to have some discussion on what's coming up for you now when you think about microaggression. This is the question. So you're gonna break in the room, and then you guys can discuss as a group.
So I picked about 12, so 5 in each room. Is 4 to 5 a good amount for each room?
Yeah, 5 and 6. Yeah,
Um,
8 is not bad. If you're doing 8,
okay,
8 is fine.
so let me do
You don't want too
like.
many breakouts. I'm saying 8 to 10 is pretty good. Why can't you this?
Okay, so I'm gonna create the rooms. It's automatically assigning people.
So if you guys want to have some discussion in this group about what are you thinking about as we kind of really we're doing define, and then they're gonna do breakouts there.
And he will be in one, so we'll just have to
Something
make sure
that
like we stay
comes to
muted.
mind. I'm not sure exactly what category to fit in, but
Siren should
mean for it to come across that way.
That's okay. So we're getting that all the rooms back now?
Mhm.
Okay. So slash, like that. On the slide. It's not moving. Is everyone back though?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so.
So let's just talk about this. Anybody want to share?
Is it working?
Yes.
Okay.
Anybody want to share anything that came up for them? Anything they want to share about discussion they had in the room? And again, when we do the breakout sessions, certainly you can share any personal experiences that you have, but I don't want this to get emotional for you. But again, when you think about microaggressions, typically you think about how it applies to you. But you can share to whatever extent you feel like you're comfortable sharing, you can. I just want to give everybody the opportunity to share whether or not anything came up for them or they heard something that was an aha moment for them in the breakout session. But they'd like to share with the bigger group.
Well, this is Denise. And from our group, I shared with my group that there were two things for me is that I never ever heard of microaggressions. And I had, when I was at work, fairly new, I just made a comment that was related to a person that was Hispanic, and I didn't think it was any problem. I just was celebrating their birthday and said, here's a little caliente. And they came to me later, said that's a microaggression. I'm like, what is that? I've never heard that. So they explained to me, but wasn't intentional. And so I apologize for any kind of offense. And, that was a learning experience. So I'm here, learning more about it. And then we talked about when I saw that the line about all lives matter and asked, could that be offensive? So good conversation around that. So.
Thanks for sharing. Anyone else? Any other comments?
Yes, this is Dr. J. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. One of the things that I said in my group, as a preventative measure or to minimize microaggressions, I know it is so important to communicate with people consistently that we perceive as being different from us. When we can read a certain amount in a book, in a textbook, we can go to a certain number of lectures, but it's nothing like having those heart-to-heart, honest, courageous conversations, eyeball to eyeball, when we can learn what they believe, what they feel. As the person spoke before me, we can learn what's considered a microaggression. But if we only talk to people who look like us, think like us, eat like us, dress like us, go to church like us, or worship or whatever, then we really don't learn the nuances of any demographic. So that requires being deliberate. It requires being intentional. So not only am I going to talk with a person of a different culture, a different ethnicity, I'm going to talk with someone of a different attractional orientation, gender, all of that. But we have to have what I consider eyeball to eyeball, consistent communication with another person or people.
Well said. We're going to talk towards the end of the presentation about what happens if you commit a microaggression, or what happens if someone says it to you. How do you some options for how you should handle it. So thanks for sharing. So right now I'm going to share from the research I've done some of the type of microaggressions that I've heard of the research, so you can get your head around some of these things that, again, I keep saying this, give yourself grace, because you're going to see some things on here you may have said or may have been said to you. And again, the whole essence of whether or not it's intentional or not it plays out here. So anyway, these are some examples of some racial microaggressions. I'll let you read those and then we'll talk about it.
Credit to your racist.
Yes.
So some of these might be new to you. Some of these have been around for a long time. The one I always mention, because it's pretty recent in the last couple of years, is master bedroom, because that's offensive now because it's akin to slavery. So now people want you to say the primary bedroom instead of master. See, again, that's a nuance. You might have said that all your life. The one that's not funny to me, interesting to me is don't be an Indian giver. Now I'm older than a lot of people, so that back in the day, that means, what does it mean? Anybody know what that means? Don't be anybody know what that means?
You give a gift and take it back.
Exactly. It has nothing to do with Native Americans. I don't understand how they got that, right?
Because I think we
Right.
did that too.
Yeah.
Done to them.
Yeah.
You did it to
We
them,
did
though.
that
I
to
don't to them,
them,
I know.
Whites.
Yeah. So you are so articulate. I'm sure you've heard that, or you might have said it. So the one, you are a credit to your race. All lives matter, and the one I keep up there because it's a personal favorite of mine. I'm not racist. I have several Black friends. One of my friends, he's deceased now. He had cancer, but and I teased him about this until he passed away. He had cancer. He actually said to me, I know a lot about Black people because I watch BTE.
Oh.
Or BET.
Every time I see him, I mention it. So good. He's like, I know all about Black people. I watch BTE. I said, what? I'll never forget it. Again, well intended. Anybody know about You Got Gypped? Have you heard You Got Gypped before?
Yeah.
That means that you got gypped. You paid too much for something. The reason why it's offensive because it relates to gypsies. That's what I'm saying. Again, when you see these things, they could have been okay, but now you realize they're not.
What did you say it relates to?
Gypsies.
I never.
And Dr. Van, even the original of gypsies is Egyptians.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of folks from different ethnicities or accents, they'll be asked all the time, where are you really from? And they already tell you where they're from, but they'll ask you again. Again, I'm not saying people shouldn't be offended, but I also realize since I've been doing this work, some people have no idea what's acceptable or not.
I did see Lisa had her hand up for a minute and then put it back down. So Lisa, I'm not sure. Did you want to unmute and say something?
It was just when he asked what You Got gypped. I appreciated him including that. That seems to me to be like the last thing that so many people say all the time without even thinking about it. And then when you pointed out to them that it's it's a slur or whatever, people are it's my family's background. It was my grandparents. I wasn't raised in that world. They immigrated to the United States and they assimilated. And but it's like, when people hear that and then they want to know where my crystal ball is, or like if I wear a peasant blouse or something like that. So it's just, I appreciated seeing it because so many people it just seems to be just so out there. People don't even recognize it.
The place I used to work at, there was an executive assistant there, and we had chocolate chip cookies one day, and she didn't get enough chips. And she yelled across the whole room, I got gypped. Again, she had no idea that was offensive. So I did tell her. And sometimes people don't like to be corrected, but again, a lot of times they don't know. Sometimes people can get offended if you correct them. Or they go, everybody's so sensitive. No, if you know better, you can do better, right? And so, but the challenge with that is, ever since I corrected her, every time I come around, she won't say anything because she's scared I'm corrected about something. That wasn't my intention.
Well, and I think why it matters is because it's still, there are still places where people who are gypsies or Romani, they're still like persecuted or like they weren't when everybody was saying, get out of Ukraine, Russia's invading. There was a lot of countries that wouldn't let gypsy people cross the border. So it's like really like recently, and I'm not saying that, obviously the other stuff is too, and people just don't even realize that kind of stuff still happens.
Someone asked about master bedroom again. I think I mentioned earlier that's
people respond
akin to slavery. Somebody responded to that. Okay, so let's go on to the next thing.
There's a lot of stuff in the chat.
Is there?
The chat is going bananas.
Well, let me know, because I'm trying to.
I will, but it's a lot of interacting
Okay,
with
good.
each other, which is good.
They do it before I even have a chance to write
Okay, well, let me
anything.
know if I need to do something. All right, so now I said women experience microaggressions 2 to 3 times more than anyone else. There's pages, I didn't put everything here, but there's a lot of things around women that I guess kept some of the key ones. So I'll let you see this. Now, one is one about being interrupted all the time. These are the most common things that women have said, how they're being interrupted, having their judgment questioned, not being given credit. You can see them all, and you see the one about Black women. Another thing about the research about microaggression with women also interrupt each other, not just men doing it. So women can interrupt each other. So again, so let me go through some.
Well, in my work, I come across it all the time that even female providers will assume another provider is male.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. See, the one about Black women are 2 times more likely to have white women hear someone at work express surprise about their language or their abilities. Well, I'm surprised, because I remember when I worked at, I won't say where I worked at, I remember this white woman was working with a Black woman. They were working on a project. And the white woman said to her, well, I'm surprised that you knew that, especially because you don't have any education. That's what she said to her. And the Black woman in that example had a bachelor's degree. She did have an education, but she assumed she didn't. You can't get grades every time. Sometimes you got to check people.
No.
Anyway. All right.
Exactly.
Don't leave here. I'm saying, O'Ban said be nice to me. No, if you think I'm saying that, no, you got the wrong person. Sometimes you got to check them and say, look, I don't care if you meant it or not. Anyway. So here's some other things about microaggressions women. I'll let you read those. Let's see if you have any comments about those. One that blew me away when I was doing the research on this is mansplaining. So mansplaining is explaining, and every time I do this, I look around the room and all women go, yeah, it happens all the time. It's so stupid for men not to even, I'm looking at you. but it's like explaining something to a woman that she already knows. And I don't know why we can't pick up that they already, but I'm looking at these women in here. Do that happen a lot? What do you do?
Depends on the person. Yeah. Like if I know them.
Yeah. What about you guys on the call? Does mansplaining happen to you a lot? People explain something to you that you already know. And if so, how do you handle it?
I internally roll my eyes.
Our door wasn't working at the front one time, so we put in a request, and then maintenance came and showed us how to lock and unlock the door, because we clearly haven't been doing it correctly.
It's just amazing to me, because the whole thing about mansplaining is they already know. And I guess we kind of, you don't pick up on clues as a man. We still, but I ask women this all the time, and I just get tired. I'm like, you know what, I'm not gonna even.
Someone said they say, thank you for restating that for all of us.
Oh, so I didn't explain it. See, I just explained it. I wasn't intending to explain it because you didn't understand. I'm explaining this. There's one guy in the room. I'm looking at him like, you need to stop doing this. I'm looking at Brandon, so looking at him like, you need to stop. I don't say.
Someone said, sometimes it's interesting to see how dumb they think I am.
That's my
If
point.
it's not at work and they won't listen, when I said I know that, I'll ask a dumber and dumber question.
That's my point. It's just amazing to me.
Sometimes I think, like, even when I am asking a question, they'll start explaining things that around not what I asked. Like I'm asking about something specific and they go all the way to the back so they can explain it all the way through. And I'm like,
my favorite is Alicia will say, maybe you're not hearing me, and then repeat your question.
Hello, Dr. Van, I was going to say sometimes, well, when you, and I don't mean to bring religion into it, but when you think of just religion, that God is portrayed as a man, sometimes I'll say, God is good. Yes, she is. And people freak out. But, but God is not a man. God is not a male. God is spirit, and spirit doesn't have a gender. So if I say God is good, yes, she is, people go crazy. God is a man. Well, no, not necessarily. But it's baked into all of this when we talk about sex as language and all.
Yeah.
That's programming. Good preacher, are you?
Well,
Yeah.
I'm going
Yeah, he has a remix.
I just met him, that's why I knew that.
I'm going to add something that I think it's funny. So my mom had discussion this with the priest, the God is a male, right? My mom said, nope, you're right. God is a male. And you know why? Because if we're a mom, they will not be fighting. They will be each one in a corner. Their clothes will be clean. They will respect each other. There'll be no supper. And she goes on and on about how a mom keeps the kids in order. A dad, yeah, God is reading his newspaper, sitting in a comfy chair. They are little. They'll figure it out. Yeah, some bruises don't hurt. Yeah, you're right. God is a male.
Yeah, I guess I don't know if we're gonna talk about religion, so let's go on. All right, so I have you read these also, take a look at these.
Yeah.
And when you look at these, you have to look at them and go, yeah, where those come from, people actually say those things. I mean, it's not like this is made up. It's just amazing to me.
People ask that question.
And, with this whole thing about microaggressions, you have to, even I've done this several times, and I always say to myself, it's one thing to think something, but it's another thing to say it. And sometimes you should be catching yourself. We'll talk about that at the end about catching yourself saying stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so again, I'm talking to Alexia, a lot of you in healthcare, some of you are in education, some of you are in business, but I have a lot of things in here. That's why it's good to give you the slides, because I have other examples in here about classrooms if you are in education, but these are some that's relevant to healthcare. And so you could say they apply everywhere, but these are some that I found doing the research related to healthcare. And I know in talking to one of the, she's Hispanic, one of the doctors here at Bronson, she tells me all the time, she can go into in the room with her robe on and everything, and they still think, sometimes they'll ask her to take their food tray downstairs.
Oh.
This couple weeks ago, a doctor told me she's got what's a stethoscope, is that how you say that? She said she has all that stuff on and the coat, and they'll say, well, can you take my food down? Yeah, so happens. Yeah. All right. Okay, so here's some of the microaggressions that I've heard have been said in healthcare. Again, the one about have several black friends still comes up. When I look at you, I don't see color. I mean, heard that. You want to become a doctor? Won't that be hard? Why not look into nursing? Again, microaggressions tend to happen more to people, the women, than anyone else, but it's still kind of consistent all over the board. So I went through those pretty quick, but I wanted you to get your head around some of the examples. So now we want to put you back in the groups and talk about the ones that I covered, racial microaggressions, all the ones, this is moving. Talk about these in terms of your group. Have you observed these or have you experienced any of these in the workplace? So we'll put you in the groups right now. We'll have some discussion about this and we'll come back. You guys can discuss here.
Just wait until we're thrown into the other group. Yeah.
Okay, you still, okay.
Should be doing it like right now.
Can I sit down?
As long, see, we can see you right there.
Since.
Something happened. Oh,
They-
that is so.
Did I blink out? Did you all hear everything that I said there?
I didn't hear anything. They took us out the groups.
Yes.
Oh,
Great.
He was my first session when you I was cracking up. He used to say, "Can't dominate the whole stuff." He loves it. How we go? All right, so I'm gonna skip these for now. Well, so again, I want to be sure we have time to talk. So some of these, you're gonna get these slides. So I'm gonna just touch on a couple of things. These are some of the harmful impact of microaggressions that happen at work. Because a lot of people say, how important is this? It doesn't make any difference, so what? But it is important. One of the things I always want to point out, if you haven't heard of it, is this thing called imposter syndrome. But that's a big deal. And that's when you doubt your own abilities. When you are just as competent, or maybe more competent than everyone in the room. My example that I use personally is I teach classes at Cornerstone University. I teach a business class and I teach communication classes. Currently I teach a class for business undergraduates, and it's the last class before they graduate. And every time I teach that class, I walk in the classroom, and I'm looking at myself and going, man, am I qualified to do this? I got 3 degrees, but I'm looking at these folks, they don't even have one. And I'm like, well, why am I thinking that way? But sometimes after a while, people will say that, well, why are you thinking that way? You shouldn't think that way. But sometimes if you beat down or you walk in a room and people question you all the time, you start to question yourself. So that's the big deal in the workplace. And the other two are overperforming. You've heard over the years, people of color or women will say, I've been told by my parents, someone, I got to be twice as good or 3 times as good. The research says that's not healthy. Research says people of color are dying and have mental illness and all that because if you put that much pressure on yourself to be twice as good or 3 times as good, it's not. First of all, back in the day, it was like, okay, man, that's pretty healthy because you stay on your toes, but not anymore. And then underperforming. Some people want to stay on the radar because, look, I don't want to draw any unnecessary attention to myself because I just don't want it. So these are the things, the impacts that they could have in the workplace. Skip that for now. So we've been talking a little bit about how do you respond and how do you respond if it's intentional or not. The research says most people don't respond to microaggressions. You can pick your reason why that might be, and here's some of the reasons. You ever had something happen so quickly to you, you don't know how to respond? Did that really happen? That happens. You denied that it happened. No, I know they didn't say that. I know, no, I didn't hear that right. I know, no, they couldn't have said that. Or you're confused about what just happened. And then here's another one. You recognize that it won't have any impact. So depending on what the relationship is with the person, what good is going to do? He's going to keep saying it. She's going to keep doing this. So these are the reasons why people don't respond. Or fear of negative consequences. I know this is big with women, feeling like they're going to be looking at the person who's complaining all the time. And then people of color, okay, here she goes playing the race card. So what I'm saying is, this may happen to you often, but the research says most of us don't respond. My thing is, it takes a lot for me to get upset, but I can explode, so I know I have to respond. So the worst thing you can be is passive aggressive with this stuff and keep letting it go, and then all of a sudden, because then all the focus is on you. They're like, okay, why did he, the angry black man thing for me, on women, that kind of thing. Anyway, so let me go on with time. Go past that. So we've been talking about what happens when something happens. What happens when you encounter a microaggression? What happens? A good thing to say is, what do you mean by that? Get clarity. Whenever you ask for clarity, that's a positive because people really can't take issue with saying, I just want to understand. They could, but or educate, even if they don't mean to offend you, it's important to tell them they did. And if it becomes a toxic situation in your workplace where this is prevalent all over, it becomes an issue that HR has to deal with. Because if you work in an organization where this is all the time, then it becomes a bigger issue. It becomes toxic. So what happens when you witness a microaggression? What should you consider? And we talked about this a little bit. What's the right moment to say something? How do you know when the right moment to say something, right? How do you know that? But you have to consider the environment and consider the moment. Sometimes you have to step away from things, right? But the other thing I will tell you about microaggressions, anything related to DEI, be careful speaking for other people. Sometimes they don't want you to speak for them. I've had that situation where people go, "Weren't you offended by that?" I'm gonna say something. No, if I, but sometimes, if I want to say something, I'll say. But a lot of people get offended for you. It could backwards. It could backfire you if they don't want you speaking for them. And here's the other key: what is your personal awareness of the subject? Don't walk out here thinking you know everything about microaggressions and trying to correct people. Well, I know you said something wrong. What was it? I don't know. I think it was wrong. That kind of stuff. Talk about the behavior. Talk about what they actually said. So we're gonna go through these real quick. We don't have to break up into groups. We're gonna go through these real quick. A female employee makes a recommendation in a meeting and gets ignored or talked over. A male colleague makes a similar or the same recommendation and is praised in the same meeting. What do you do? Or do you do anything? And then that's for you guys here and also people on the line. Would you say anything?
Insert
I
eye
mean, you
roll.
could just say, oh yeah, that's what so-and-so said.
I've had other people, but I just did a session last week and there was all women in there. And they said it happens all the time. And they say, I said, do you ever say anything? I said, no. That's gotta be frustrating. The people, that happens to you all the time. I'm not saying what everybody should do, everybody should speak up, but this happens. And in this case, this is kind of a serious thing because it's in the workplace. It could impact your pay, your work performance, but it happens. All right, let's do another one. Oh, these are something that happens in the classroom. Again, if you work in education, again, you're gonna get these slides, but these are some things that happen in the classroom. I'm gonna go to this one though. This one right here, because this is always interesting to me. I need to be over here. Assuming that all African Americans know about African American experience. This is actually research I've done. The quote was, "We just read about poverty among African Americans in America. Does this fit your experience?" An instructor actually asked that of an African American student in the class.
Someone said, can you address how to handle an accidental microaggression? Do you go back later and apologize to the person and share you are aware you made a mistake and would like to apologize?
Perfect, yes. Once you're aware, I think I have it in the slide. Once you're aware that you committed a microaggression, you should go back and apologize. But make sure you know it's a microaggression. Don't go back and apologize for something that wasn't even wrong. That's what I'm saying. You got to know your stuff, right? Yeah, that's the excellent one, yeah.
Someone said a couple of years ago, my son's teacher shared with the whole class how he had autism during Autism Awareness Month. That was not fun to deal with at all.
Yeah. You see that bottom one there? That's akin to that. If anyone has a disability, raise your hand so we can make accommodations for it. Yeah, it was said. I'm not making it, it was said. And is that good intentions or not, you think? It's probably good intentions to see if they can accommodate someone, right? But
yeah,
that's the opposite impact. Like Dr. Nisha said, intent and impact. I'm gonna skip that for now. All right, we talked about this. So a coworker says, I don't see color. What do you say? Or what do you say anything?
Color's my shirt.
Color's your shirt?
Color is your hair.
And some of you on this call might have said that before. Again, give yourself grace because sometimes that's well intended as well. What do you think?
Said, what do you mean by that?
What do you think people mean by that when they say it? Let me ask it differently. If it's happened to you, if you said it, what do you think people generally mean when they say, I don't see color?
They don't discriminate.
They don't discriminate.
They're trying to be indifferent.
I treat everyone the same. What's wrong with that? I don't discriminate. Tell me what's wrong with that?
It ignores differences that should be celebrated.
Somebody said, I used to think it was a good way to be, but then I realized it was completely erasing the person.
Yes.
That's a great example. And again, I know I keep saying this over and over, but sometimes you'd be surprised people don't know what they don't know. And I'm not saying you should ever give everybody a pass, but sometimes people have to be educated. I'm sure I've experienced that a lot. A lot.
Similar to when someone says, I don't care if you're black, white, green, or purple. And I know if someone was green and walked in this room, that would be.
Yeah. That would be very
good. That's used a lot. People say it doesn't matter what color.
Yeah.
think JB said something about this. This is why it matters. It denies someone's identity. People say he's colorblind, and then it's kind of a racist thing, but people don't have any idea. Let's see here. I'm asked this question. I think the ask this with mostly women. How many more times often do men interrupt women than other men? How many more times do men interrupt women than other men?
Yeah.
How many more times? How many?
4 to 1.
3 times as much.
Limit does not exist.
Almost 3 times. Yeah, do it all the time. Okay. All right, let's skip that. Okay, so we got 3 minutes before we wrap up. But what if you commit a microaggression? Is that what it said? Yeah, what if yeah, let's see, can't remember. Listen for understanding. I think I heard you say, take a moment to pause. We said this earlier, give yourself grace. Some of you said, I might have said these things, or what if I say this accidentally? Give yourself grace. Acknowledge and apologize. But don't say, I'm sorry if you took that wrong. That's not an apology. Because some people will say that. Well, I'm sorry if you were offended by that, but I didn't mean anything by it, but it still was offensive. Right? And create space for follow-up. What about my own behavior? I love the first one. If you think your question or compliment could offend someone, chances are it will. You ever heard people say, don't take this wrong?
Yeah.
You know you're gonna take it wrong, right? Yeah, or they say to be honest. Oh, so you've been lying the whole time. I'm gonna be honest. You want me to be honest with you, man? No, I want you to lie. Because you know they're gonna offend you and say something, right? I've said it before, don't take this wrong. You know it's gonna be wrong. Be open to having uncomfortable conversations. I mean, that's the key part of this. Be able to talk to everyone. Being comfortable being comfortable is a good thing. And this is not easy. This is easier said than done. Let someone explain to you how your words offended them. After you said something, let them explain it to you. Educate yourself on someone else's culture, because you don't know. Typically, we're around people who look like us and think like us, so it's very seldom we're around other people. So, and then apologize. Just apologize. All right, we got time here. So let's go into one more breakout session. And again, these are some questions I want you to see if you can answer or respond to. You know, anybody in the group, you don't have to answer all four of these. But a lot of times when I do this, people have some kind of quick reflections on what they learned or what they were surprised about. So in your breakout, just have some discussion around these questions. If you're ready to answer any of those questions, sometimes you might have to process this, but I want to do that, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay, they're being moved.
Okay. Giants. All right.
You can stay seated.
not true.
Yeah, I have a hard time always moving around when I'm doing training.
Understood.
So I'm glad you said it because I was like,
Oh, right. Good to see you too. I understand your in person is your jam. In person is your jam.
This is good for me.
Look at us. Nancy and Marnie. Okay, you're good.
All right, so we're back. We're going to be closing up in a few minutes, but I know you had some discussion in your groups. But does anybody want to share anything, address any of these 4 things that you are thinking about? Again, a lot of this, sometimes people need time to process. So I'm not suggesting you need to be prepared to address these things, but sometimes the content, when it's fresh for you, you might be thinking about these things. Now, anybody in the room on the call want to address any of these 4 questions or 4 things about your reflections before we close?
One of the things our group talked about, my name is Corinne, is the fact that we see people tend to be put into buckets, and we all have our own lived experiences that have molded us. So for example, yes, I'm a middle-aged white woman, but that doesn't make me equal to every other middle-aged white woman. Just because you are Middle Eastern does not mean you have the same beliefs and the same culture as anyone else who is Middle Eastern. We all have those different lived experiences and beliefs, and being cognizant and respectful of that is very important.
Thank you for sharing.
One of the things that I'm going to do differently is when I'm in conversations where I have some control, when men interrupt women, I'm going to check it right when it happens. And then what I wonder is, when we have these situations of microaggressions, will these conversations translate to action?
I think Jamie. Oh, yeah. Jamie, you could go ahead and unmute.
I just wanted to tag on to what that gentleman just said. I have a coworker who actively does that, and it is so noticeable, and I just absolutely adore him and am loyal to him because he does that. It's so powerful, and your female colleagues will notice that. And it's amazing to see that happen consistently.
And again, I know I've been saying this all along, but sometimes people don't know. And a lot of this, if you have a good relationship with someone, you can have that conversation about, when you said this, because you want to educate them. But sometimes people might be offended by it, like Lex was saying in the group. Sometimes people kind of get sensitive about you can't say anything anymore, everything's offensive, right? That kind of thing. But if you know better, you can do better. But a lot of this is based on a relationship. I mean, me being a Black man, I certainly don't go around correcting people every time they say something offensive. But I will if I have to, because I'm passive aggressive. I know I only can take so much. And I got friends of mine also will say, hey, didn't that offend you? Sometimes you get egged on by other people. And I didn't think I was offended, but I guess now I am since you said it. Or why don't you say anything? You need to speak up for yourself. Also, when you kind of let things go, sometimes other people might call to your attention. But what I'm saying in that case, if you have someone that you work with and you have a close relationship with them, then my suggestion is maybe you should say something because they probably don't know.
Yeah, in some of the situations, like the example of the meeting where a male repeats what the other person said, or the example of the disabilities, it is a lot more effective if other people speak up. Because, yeah, the person is on the spot, and it is up to others.
And the thing about this I said earlier is a lot of times people just get tired.
Yeah.
And that's not saying you shouldn't say anything, but people just get worn out by it. Get tired. Someone said earlier, I get tired of it's not my job to educate people. But sometimes if you don't say anything, how are they gonna know? Right? Anybody else have anything on the call any people want to share?
Some people are saying the most important thing I learned was anything you say could be perceived as a microaggression. The most important thing is the responsibility to learn and to educate. And then lastly, you have to feel comfortable to be uncomfortable sometimes.
Yes. I don't know. Are we
Try and point it at your computer, because I think that's where it's plugged in at.
Sorry, a couple slides on there.
Okay.
Anyway, we're gonna wrap up. There's only a couple slides left. I don't have to cover them. It's just, one is a reminder of the CEU credit. And again, you're gonna get these slides so you can, and it's time sensitive. There we go. So as a reminder, you'll get these slides, but you need to, the 12-hour turnaround, you need to text that activity. You need to kind of take a look at that. And I think you got one more slide. I think it's
Kyle, can you put the code in the chat too, please?
we're gonna put the code in the chat, so thank you. I also want to thank Lexi. I've been working with her. This is the second time we've done this, and I'm getting used to having the audience in the classroom and also online. And I'm making a lot of coaching about people to stand here and move here, sit down, stand up. So I'm learning. So hopefully you guys are patient on the call, and hope that you got something out of this. And I appreciate your staying with us. And I think my contact information, I think is one more slide. So that's all my contact information. You'll get these slides if you don't have further discussion or anything else. So thanks for paying attention, especially on the Friday. I know people need to check out mentally on the Friday. So thank you guys, and much appreciated.
All right, thank you.
Nice job. Thank you.
You got a lot of thank you very much.